This is the Nashville Tableau user group, virtual session number 18. We have these just about every month, and it's hard to believe we've been doing virtual now for almost 2 years. Excited to have you with us. We're excited to have this session today. Scanning over the agenda, we have a number of valuable segments for you. First up, we'll have co-founder Quawn Clark with Pivot Technology School to talk briefly about his organization, followed by Jim Dehner, our very own Tableau user group Nashville co-leader, and not to mention Zen Master, talking to us about restructuring data with scaffolding. We'll have a brief time for trivia, see how much you know Tableau, and Jeffrey Shaffer, Tableau tips and charts. Yes, this is the same Jeff Shaffer, who is also a Tableau Zen Master and co-author of the Big Book of Dashboards. We'll then open the floor.
Let's do Jeff. Jeff is a Hall of Fame Zen Master, which is
there's a caste system within the Zen Master totem pole panel P, and Jim's not on the bottom, but he's not on the top. Yeah. And Jeff, I cannot say your name, Jeff. Jeff Shaffer.
Jeff is not old, but Jeff is one of the all-time old school legends.
Yeah.
So,
and then towards the end, we'll open the floor for announcements. Namely, if you're hiring, you can share that, and if you're looking to be hired, you can share that. Lots of URLs get slung around in the chat at this portion. And then we'll let you know what you can expect for the next session. So we're right at time. That was our introduction of our agenda. I think I will ado no longer, and I invite you to welcome Quawn Clark with a nice virtual round of applause, co-founder of the Pivot Technology School. Take it away, Quawn. You can also share your screen when and if you like.
Hello, how's everybody going? Hey, so my name is Quawn Clark, co-founder of Pivot Technology School. We are a coding bootcamp based out of Nashville, Tennessee. I do have a presentation, so I'll get that shared. I just want to let you all see me before I jump on. Second. Can everyone see?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So again, my name is Quawn Clark. I'm the co-founder of Pivot Technology School. Pivot Tech is a coding bootcamp based out of Nashville, Tennessee. And we started in 2019 with the sole mission of getting more minorities trained and engaged in technology careers. As you all know, tech careers are not only driving the economy, but it's really essential that everyone taps in and has a place in technology if they're going to continue to thrive going forward. But there's a group of individuals that have not been benefiting from the tech boom. So our entire mission was to create avenues that empower a highly diverse demographic by providing industry-leading training and highly demand technology skills. We started with data analytics, cybersecurity, data analytics and software development. But this year we added cybersecurity into our mix. And we actually started as an in-person coding bootcamp, but 2020 actually completely changed our business model and we went to a fully virtual school. So now we've expanded outside of Nashville into the West Coast, East Coast, and also into some of the southern states as well. We were co-founded by myself and Joshua Mundy. I have a tech background. I spent about 10 years in corporate America working as a data analyst, business intelligence analyst, ran a few BI teams, moved up to a product owner, and then really just wanted to get back into the entrepreneurship space and really help other individuals find their space in the tech space. Again, we initially, we were an in-person school. We had about 4 classrooms that were run simultaneously, and they were held on Jefferson Street here in Nashville, Tennessee. Last year, around March the 3rd, there was one of the worst tornadoes in Nashville's history that came through and literally took the roof off of our building, as you can see in this picture. And it really made us pivot. We really had to tap into our name, and we had a temporary location. COVID came through, sent us fully virtual. We've been virtual ever since. And I think it really benefited us as a school going forward, because we, at the time, did not have plans in the immediate to get outside of Nashville. But now, like I said, we have students all the way from California to New York. We're impacting individuals outside of our community and on a wider scale. And it's really helped us tap into some other resources. We are now also moving into the corporate upskilling space. We have a partnership with a company called Shift out of Birmingham, Alabama. What we're doing is essentially upskilling current employees that don't necessarily have the technological background, and providing those skills so they can advance and move within in those organizations. We just finished a program with Amazon here in Nashville, Tennessee, and we look to get a lot more of those programs going in the near future. And what we're really looking to do is get mentors. What we're seeing is that, a lot of the students that come through Pivot Technology School, they're new to the tech space. They've never necessarily worked SQL is new to them. Tableau is definitely new to them, but they already have the skill sets. They've already been analysts. They've already spent a lot of time analyzing and doing a lot of the things you would do in the data space. They just don't have the technological skills. So once we provide these skill sets, mentoring is a very, very, very valuable piece to the learning process. So we're really just looking to get additional mentors, individuals that really want to pay it forward and connect and kind of share some of your experiences and stories with some of our graduates or even current students to assist them in their learning process. We do have a mentoring application on our website, which is www.pivottechschool.com. You can go right on our website, apply to be a mentor. And typically what we do is whenever our cohorts start out, we have a mentor and matchmaking process, because we really want to align students with a mentor that really connects with them, have similar interests, and can really be beneficial to their process. So if anyone is interested in working with Pivot Technology School as a mentor, or just in general in other capacities, definitely go onto our website, or you can contact me directly. I can give you my information. My email address is qclark, that's QCLARK @pivottechschool.com. You can also reach me on Facebook, Instagram. My Instagram handle is Mr. Q Clark 17. And you can also reach me on LinkedIn at Quawn Clark. So definitely tap in with me if you have any interest in paying it forward and being a mentor. We're definitely looking to get our students trained and engaged. Tableau is an amazing tool in the data visualization space, and we really want Pivot Technology students to have the best of the best. So thank you for giving me this moment to speak with you all, and have a great one.
Awesome. Thanks, Quawn.
Mhm.
Let's see. Next up, we have restructuring data with scaffolding. Jim Dehner. It's this is, I guess, just ways to stage the data. This would be interesting. And yeah, I like Jim. I love Jim. I'm sure you all do too. Let's welcome him. Clap virtually, please. Yeah, thank you. Welcome. Go, Jim.
Okay, good afternoon. Hey, I'm really glad to be speaking here in Nashville. Today, I want to talk about how you deal with data sets that are not necessarily perfect. They might have all the data that you want and need, but it's not structured in a way that you can actually use it in Tableau. First, just a little bit about me. I do live in Nashville. Actually, I live in Fairview for you people who live in Nashville. If you don't live in Nashville, Fairview is about 30 miles west of Nashville. I'm a BI consultant. And the important part here is I'm not an IT professional. I am not a data scientist. I'm an engineer. And I've got a business background also. And I spent a lot of years working in consumer products as a product manager and also a business unit manager. I had a client come to me about 5 years ago, and he wanted me to get into Tableau. So I've been using Tableau for a little over 5 years. I just started my 5th term as a Tableau Forums ambassador, and I am also a Zen master. Today, I want to talk about data sets that need to be restructured. I don't know about you, but when I first learned Tableau, and maybe you had the same experience also, we always worked with a real solid data set. And by solid, I mean every cell was full and we had data to work with. But in the real world, often data sets aren't like that. There's gaps and voids in the data, and sometimes they're just plain sparse. And it affects the analysis and it affects what you can do with them. But that's not because the data set is a bad data set or it's dirty data.
Funny.
Sorry. Okay. It's because it's a result of where the data has come from. For example, ERP systems, if you're familiar with Oracle or SAP, they're transaction-based systems and they only record a record when a transaction takes place. If there's no sales today, there's no record for today. And then you have third-party systems that were designed for a specific purpose and they collect data for that. And we're going to piggyback off them and take the data and use it for some other purpose. And it may not be structured just the way we need it. Now, today we're going to look at some real-world examples. And by real-world examples, I mean these are actual questions that came in to the forum, and they involve data that had to be restructured. And the user literally was saying, "I don't know what to do." We're going to look at 3 different types. The first type is a classic problem. It's what we call the 2-date problem. You have each record has a start date and an end date, and you're trying to figure out what happens in between across a whole series of records. We see this question come up 2-3 times a week. The second type we're going to look at is what happens when you have data that's real solid at high levels of aggregation in the data, but when you drill down in the data becomes sparse. And then the third type we're going to look at, and you might have had this problem when you're working with a data set and you're applying some filters and all of a sudden the screen goes blank because you hit a void in the data. Well, let's take a look at that first category, and that's the 2-date problem. This is the type of problem that comes up a lot for money managers or maybe loan officers where they've got a data set and they've got for each record, it might be like a mortgage, for example. They know when the mortgage started, they know what the monthly payment's going to be, they've got an end date, but what they really want to know is if they looked across the entire portfolio, what their cash flow is going to be. Or it could be like this example that came to us from an HR manager. Now I've simplified the data a little bit. It was a little bit more complex than this, but our HR manager came in and said, look, over the year, I had a number of job requisitions, a number of jobs that were open. And for each of them, I had a start date, an open date for the requisition. And then I had a date that it was filled. And what I want to do is I want to find out how many I filled each month and how many were still open. And he was playing with this data and he was looking and he says, I can't get these dates to line up. And he says, what do I need to do? Well, if we take a look at his problem, what he wanted to do is he wanted to put each one of these on a calendar, but he didn't have a calendar. There's no calendar in the data, and he couldn't figure out how to make a calendar. Well, this is where the scaffold comes in. And we used a scaffold, and this is very, very simple, and I was able to do this in Excel. And all I did for the scaffold is use the first date of each month for the entire year. Okay, and we bring that into Tableau. Okay, we bring that into Tableau and we're going to join that, and it's a real join. We're going to join that with our raw data, but we're going to use what's called a Cartesian join. What we want is each record in our raw data set to match up and join with every date in that scaffold data set. And to do that, we use a join clause of 1 equals 1. And to create that join clause, all you have to do is open up more fields, select, come down, create relationship, and insert a 1 on each side, and 1 equals 1. Okay, so now each record in the raw data set is joined with each record in the scaffold data set. And when we come back and apply, add the months from the scaffold to columns, it begins to look like that calendar that our HR manager wanted. Now, the first thing he wanted to do is he said, I want to know how many of these jobs I filled each month. So to do that, we can now write a fairly simple expression. And I wrote this as an LOD because it's real data, had several levels in it. For what we're doing here, it doesn't necessarily have to be an LOD, but we'll use this one anyway. And all we're doing here is we're using the date function that looks at the month level and says if the month that the job was filled equals the month of the scaffold, then record the job ID. And then we're going to come back and count those. So by doing that, now we can look across the months. We can say, well, here's a job that was filled in October, and sure enough, it's filled in October, and this one's filled in October, and this one's filled in November, and so on. Then the second thing he wanted to do, he wanted to look and said, well, how many jobs or how many job recs are still open each month? And that's just a little more complex. And when we looked at this data, all we were doing here, the same type of formula, we wanted to see that the scaffold date was after the job was open, but before the job was filled. And then I also had a null check here because you can see some of these jobs were never filled. And when we add that, we can see, well, sure enough, this job is started in October, wasn't filled in October, November, December, and so on. But once we do that, now the data has been restructured, and we can do any type of analysis with that data. We can summarize it so it looks like this, or we can include it in a chart where you can look at the jobs filled versus the jobs that were open. Now, if we take a step back for a second, we think about our HR manager. He had all the data he needed, but he was missing one piece, and the piece that he was missing was the calendar. There was no calendar to put those dates on, and we were able to create a calendar for him by using a scaffold. Now, in the second example, we're going to take a look at an inventory analysis. And in this example, what we wanted to see what happens as you drill down in a data set and the data becomes sparse. Now, the user that posed the question here is an inventory manager, and he's a real good inventory manager, and he was trying to calculate what's called days forward or days on hand. And for those of you who are familiar, that's nothing more than how many days worth of sales you have in inventory. And he was taking data from his ERP system. Those are systems like Oracle or SAP. I just want to spend a moment and explain where the data was coming from, because it's important to why the data was sparse. In his ERP system, he was collecting data from a sales invoice, and inside SAP or Oracle, there's a product hierarchy. And that hierarchy is used to aggregate the data from the lowest level of data up through product sales and up through the product line sales up to a total number. And the data that he was actually collecting off the sales invoice was the equivalent of the line item detail. And at that level, that's the lowest level, or sometimes called the grain of the data. It's the lowest level in the data set, and it's precise. We know exactly who bought the product, when they bought the product, the SKU that they bought, the quantity that they bought in units, and also in dollars. And that all the hierarchy is doing and all their ERP system is doing is adding those numbers together. And it's important to note that as you go up this pyramid or up this hierarchy, up to product sales, product line sales, and total sales, all the data is very, very accurate. It becomes less useful as we go to the upper levels here because we've only got one number. Now, in his process, this sales data gets transferred over to a forecasting model because it's got to create a sales forecast that's then used to create a production plan. And the way that works inside a ERP system is this very accurate, but not very useful one number sales data then gets broken down by product, by SKU, and finally a week or a time dimension is applied to it so that they can make a production or a sales, a demand schedule or a sales schedule. And how that works is we start with this most accurate number, which is that number at the top of the pyramid, and we start disaggregating, and we applying factors, or we might be running the data through a forecasting model to disaggregate the data by product, by SKU, and then we finally put a time dimension against it so we can get a weekly forecast that then is transferred over to the production plan, and the production planners actually schedule the production and start buying materials. Now this whole process, the most accurate number is it's at the top of the page, but it's not very useful. And the most useful number is down here after we've broken it down into a weekly forecast, but it's also the least accurate number on the page. And everybody involved with this type of process, the forecasting process and the scheduling process, understands that there's inaccuracies in the number. So they use a simple metric to judge whether sales and inventory are actually going as planned, and that metric is known as days, or days on hand, or days sales, or days of inventory. It's all the same, just a different name for it. Very simply calculated. All you do is you take the inventory in units and divide it by the average days sales. And that's where the question came in from our user. And he sent in a data set that kind of looked like this. I've simplified it a bit, but it was compacted like this. He'd put in a filter so that he was looking at the last day of sales. And his question was, look, very simple calculation. All I want to do is take this inventory number that comes out of my ERP system. So it's very precise. I know what my inventory level is. And I got the sales number that comes out of the ERP system, and I can calculate my 7 days worth of sales, or my average daily sales, and get this days on hand number. And he says, but something's wrong. It's not working the way it should. So I started by looking at these individual calculations. We take a look at his days on hand number, and it's what you would expect it to be, and it's what he said he was doing. He's taking his inventory and dividing it by his average sales over the 7 days. And then we take a look at this number. And for those of you who are familiar with table calculations and use them a lot, you'll immediately see what the problem is. He was using a function called window average to look at the last 7 records that were in his data set. And if we open this up, and I'm just going to click here so that we can see the last 7 records, and we're just going to look at company B here, we can see that the last 7 records were actually started on February 10th and ended on February 27th. It was a 17-day period. It wasn't a 7-day period. So when he thought he was calculating the average over 7 days, it wasn't over 7 days. And if we take a look at what those records actually were over the 7-day period, we can see the data was sparse. And these are actually what we call no record nulls. There is no data in the data set at all for company B on February 21st. There's just no data there. Nothing happened on the day, so there was no record recorded inside his ERP system. Well, we need to have a real record in the data set to perform the type of analysis that he wanted to do and the way he wanted to go at this analysis. Now, for those of you who are familiar with the inventory planning process, I did try to talk him out of using this analysis. There are better ways to do it than this at the level that he was looking at, but he insisted that he had to have it done this way. Okay, so what we needed to do was put a real record in there, and to do that, we used a scaffold. And I built a scaffold for him by going back and taking a look at each one of those individual dates and crossing that with each one of the customers. And we did that right here with that Cartesian join again, where each record in the ladder data set is matched with each record in the customer name data set. So we've expanded that data out to 336 records. And then we join that data back to his original data. And you can see all these values here in red are values that were added that weren't in his original data at all. Now, when we bring that data back into Tableau and look at that 7-day period, we see that, well, first of all, it's not from the 27th. There were actually records out to the 29th. So we're looking at the 7-day period from the 23rd to the 29th. And because we now have a real cell for each, a real record for each one of those data points, I was able to drop a 0 in for sales, just a ZN value for sales into the data set. And now, using that same calculation that he used before, looking over the last 7 days, we can see that for customer B, he actually had 66 days worth of inventory on hand and not the 11 or 12 days that he was looking at. Well, let's take a step back for a second and see what we did here. Here was a subject matter expert, or SME. He's a very good production planner, inventory analyst, and he knew he had a problem. He knew he wasn't getting the right values for this metric that he wanted to calculate, but he didn't know what the problem was. And quite honestly, he didn't need to know, or nor should he know. That's our job and your job as an analyst or a developer to understand what the data set is, where he's getting his data, and what the limitations of that data set were. And here he was using ERP data, and we know that it's transaction data. So yeah, there's some issues with the ERP data. And it was our job to come back and identify what needed to be done to fix that data, and we did it with the data scaffold. I got one more example to show you. And this example comes about, and you may have experienced this yourself, what happens when you hit a void in the data set. Once again, we're going to hit a no record no, but it's not sparse data. It's not like there's no data in the data set. It's just all of a sudden there's a little void in there, a little gap in the data, and you happen to hit it with a combination of filters. Now, this question came to us from a very experienced and quite well-known member of the community. And she sent in an example. It wasn't a real data. She sent in an example using Superstore data, and that's a data set you got with Tableau, the practice data set. I'm going to show you first how this comes about, and then I'm going to show you her particular problem. If we take a look here, all I did was just make a line chart based on days, and we were looking at a couple of months, February and September in 2016, and we were looking at a couple of product categories in terms of art and envelope. And if I start filtering on this, we're going to, thank you, Tableau. We're going to filter out September, and then we're going to filter out art, and all of a sudden the screen goes blank. But we're filtered for envelopes, and we're filtered for February 20th. And the reason the screen is blank is because there is no data in the data set. That the data table that underlies this particular worksheet, there's no data left in that table. And if we went up and we tried to look at that, you would see we can't see the data because there's no data in the data table under this data set. And You say, well, that's pretty obvious, Jim. We should be able to see that, and she should have been able to see that, but that's not quite what her data look like. I told you she was a very experienced analyst, and she certainly is. She knows what she's doing, and she was doing an advanced analysis known as small multiples. It's a great way to look across an entire dimension all at once. And as she presented the problem, she said, look, we've got 17 subcategories in Superstore data. And I'm looking at all 17 categories at one time using a small multiple analysis. But when I come back and filter out September, all of a sudden, there's only 13 data points shown, or 13 small multiples shown. And her question was two parts. First question was the obvious. She said, what happened? And what do I do about it? And the second, her second question was, I can't really tell my user what happened, and I can't expect them to deal with this. How do I fix this thing? Well, by now you understand that the problem is that there is no data for those 4 missing categories. And we need to use a scaffold to force records into the data set for those missing data points. And once again, I went out to prep to do this. And here we're taking a look at all the scaffold dates that are in that data set and the 17 subcategories. And once again, I use a Cartesian join, 1 equals 1 to blow that out to about 25,000 records. And then join her original data back into that data set. And once we do that, we can bring the data back in to Tableau, because now we've got real records for all those combination of points. I once again used a ZN function around sales to force a 0 into all those empty cells. And now, when we take out September, we still have all 17 categories. 4 of those categories, bookcases, envelopes, copiers, and machines, have no sales, but that's something that the user can understand and something she can explain to the user. Okay. And just to show you what that might have looked like, you can see we still have no sales or profit, but we forced a value of a 0 into there. Well, that's what I wanted to show you today. I wanted to talk about using a particular technique, data scaffolding, and how we had to restructure at least data in these 3 use cases using a data scaffold before you could perform the analysis that you wanted to do. There are a lot of other use cases. There's a lot of other ways that we could have used here, and some of them don't require scaffolding and don't respond to scaffolding. We would have to use a different technique altogether. Now, I think I have time for a question or two if there are a question. If not, this is my contact information. That the workbook that you've seen is out on my Tableau public site, and that link is in the chat. I actually wrote this up as part of my blog, and it's under use cases, and that link is in the chat also. So if you have, I'm going to stop sharing now. If you have questions, I'll try to answer them.
Jim, could you clarify what that ZN function does?
All the
those who may
ZN
not
function
know.
does, it's probably the second calculation that you ever learned, and all it does is it forces a 0 into a null record, and it works with what are known as empty cell nulls. That's where you have a real record, but there's no data in it, and you're forcing a 0 into that cell. Okay.
Cool. And I had a question too. Back at your example, making a Cartesian product of sales days and customers.
Yeah.
Isn't there still a chance that, say, like if it's a B2B organization, there might not be any sales across all the customers, say on December 25th, or I don't know, certain holidays and things?
Yeah, the short answer to the question is yes, but once again, we have forced a record into the data set for all those combinations of dates and customers.
Right, but
so
if,
they would all be 0, and I could zero out all that data and come back with a 0.
Right. But if no customer in any of your data has a sale, like a day where they bought something on December 25th, then that won't be there even when you make a Cartesian product.
Making the scaffold independent of the actual data.
Oh, okay. I misunderstood the setup.
Okay.
No worries.
Okay.
Thanks.
Okay. Yeah, you make the scaffold based on what you need to see, and then join your real data back into the scaffold data, and the scaffold data is what you use in the analysis.
One of
Okay.
the things we do, or I've done it a lot of shops in analytics situations, is make a calendar table, either in the database itself or in Excel, and each row is just a distinct day.
Yep.
And then I might even make that the first part of my data source. So like the
Yep.
calendar is actually the first thing, and then you just join your data to it on date.
Yeah. And to be straight with everybody, the easier way is to correct the data at the source than to bring the no record nulls into Tableau and deal with it in Tableau. But most users don't have that option.
Right. They're not going to
Really
create
take advantage of
a
that.
sales record for a day that didn't have any sales. Like ERP is not going to do that, nor should it.
I think Eric's sitting there waiting to give away some.
Absolutely.
All
Well,
excited about
Jim,
it.
you and I got 15 minutes according to the agenda. We can just bore everybody to death. Now let's hand it over to Eric and lead us in trivia time. How well do you know Tableau?
All right, thanks, Nick. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Awesome. Well, there's the game pin if everybody wants to join. As promised from last month, being October, this is a quiz on colors for celebrating fall. So hope you did a little studying up, but if not, it's not too hard. I don't think it's too hard.
What's at stake? Like what's up for grabs?
I think there's a $50 gift certificate to the Tableau online store. So
Yeah, who doesn't need a hoodie?
can let Jim know and he will send you the link for the voucher.
I'm digging the music on this one. Oh, and then it's gone.
Lots of initials this time. All right. Okay, is that
Exciting.
everybody? Looks like we're counting down. Get ready. Here we go. All right, so we're going to start off with two, not quizzes, but polls. So in December, we're going to have a Zoom room breakout session. So we wanted to ask you, what Zoom breakout room sessions would you like to join? Networking server, networking desktop, networking biz collaborations. So that's talking about those subjects with other people who are interested in that topic. Or did you see something at Tableau Conference 21 that you would like to discuss? So your favorite sessions from TC 21. Which of those would you be interested in watching? So we've got 4 for networking. Good. All right, so what track are you planning to take at Tableau Conference? Financial services, education, healthcare, or government? Being at Vanderbilt, my favorite answer is healthcare. That's just me.
Is there bonus points if we put healthcare as one of our answers?
No bonus. These don't even, polls don't count. So, yeah, sorry. All right, so financial services. That's a big surprise. I thought Nashville was a healthcare town. So what color represents bad in Western culture? Blue, yellow, green, or red?
The fact that the colors don't match the words is tripping me out. Be careful what you pick, people.
That was planned, so, all right, cat's out of the bag. All right, red is the correct answer, but several people hit the color, not the answer. That is true.
You said this would be easy.
Well, I didn't say I wasn't gonna pick you up. Which is not one of the 4 types of red-green color blindness. I'm not going to say them. I can't pronounce these words, so read them and pick the one that is not the red color blindness. All right, correct answer is monochromacy. So mono is see no color. So, all right. So, what does the color red mean in Asian culture? So, if you're over in China or Japan or any other Asian countries, what does the color red mean? All right, it is happiness. Not the evil that we usually think of or bad that we think of in the United States. All right, so number 6, what is the nickname for the viz that is only red, yellow, and green? Is it a whistleblower's report, a stop and go report, traffic light report, or a bell pepper report? Wow, everybody got that right. Good job.
I like
told you it was
bell pepper
easy.
report.
Told you it was easy. Yeah, I see that at Kroger, those racks of bell peppers, and I think, oh, what's that graph trying to say? What is the maximum number of colors you can have on a custom color palette? 3, 5, 10, or 20? All right. Again, 20 is the maximum for the current version of Tableau. It used to
To
be
set up your
10.
device using a screen reader, turn on
Hello.
narrator by pressing Windows plus Control plus Enter.
All right.
For more accessibility
And
features, press
finally,
Windows plus U, or
what
select the accessibility
is
icon
the
in
big
the bottom
book of
corner.
dashboards recommendation for colors? The big book of dashboard recommends to use these colors for alert, highlight, categorize, or visualize trends. Since we have the author of Big Book of Dashboard wish list, I had to throw in one of those for him. So, oh, it's a multi-select. Yep. Good job. All right, last question. 9 out of 9, which is not a type of Tableau color palette: diverging, sequential, spatial, or qualitative. Again, this is straight out of the Big Book of Dashboards. Correct answer is spatial. All right, let's see who won. Alyssa, congratulations. That's a pretty good win.
Yeah, and okay, good. For a second, we had 2 Alyssas on, so
I think they were just different spellings.
okay.
Could be wrong, but. All right, well, thank you all for playing, and
Alyssa, this is Jim. If you just direct message me your email, and we'll see you get your gift certificate tomorrow. Congratulations.
Thanks, Jim. These multi-views are not working for me. All right, we are trucking right along. Jeff Shaffer. I got it right. I'm off mute. Jeffrey Shaffer is up next. Second Zoom Master or Zen Master of the day. the aforementioned Big Book of Dashboards co-author with Tableau tips and charts. Jeff, I see you are on camera and off mute.
I'm here.
All yours. Have at it, sir.
Awesome.
Welcome.
I'm going to share my screen and just confirm that you can see it. Look good? All right. Thank
Yep.
you.
Sorry, I was on mute.
No problem. Well, pleasure to be here, everybody. It looks like on the clock I'm a few minutes early, so I'll just go until they tell me to stop. It's great to be with the Nashville Tug. My name is Jeff Shaffer. I am by day the Chief Operating Officer and VP of IT and Analytics at a financial services firm in Cincinnati, Ohio. Been in financial services about 26 years, and we're primarily a technology analytics company, and we just happen to work in financial services. By night and weekends, I'm adjunct professor at the University of Cincinnati, where I teach data viz, and Tableau is part of our course. I am a 5-time Tableau Zen Master and was inducted into the Tableau Zen Master Hall of Fame. That's not a term I made up. That's a Tableau term. If you're familiar with the Zen Master program in Tableau, then maybe you know what that is. If not, it sounds like the weirdest title you'd put on your business card ever. And co-author of the Big Book of Dashboards with Steve Wexler and Andy Cockgreave. I have a blog, dataplusscience.com, that has some websites and references for you. I'll talk about those in a little bit. And my Twitter is @highvisibility. My session today is tips, tricks, charts, kind of a fast-paced, session to kind of do a bunch of things. Some easy, some quick, some more advanced. I can't help but do something on the front page. I figure I got to do a tip or trick, at least on the title page. And so here's my tip or trick on the title page is I often use blank containers on the dashboard screen over on the left-hand side. I'll drag for example, a floating blank container onto the screen. And if I size that any size that I want to size on the layout pane, I can change the background color, for example, to white, and it makes a wonderful way to add a line or border vertically or horizontally, or to create things on your dashboard. Easy way to do that. You could do that in a tiled or floating sort of manner. The other thing I really think is awesome are collapsible containers. And so I put one on here with a little hidden hamburger menu so that I could click on that and change my picture. In this case, that's my dog, Toby. And those are awesome. Great way to declutter your dashboard by putting filters or legends or parameters or things like that a user would change. Hamburger drop down in a collapsible container is a really cool feature. You just simply put it in a container, and once it's in the container, you can just select it to collapse based on a little hamburger item, and you can even move the little icon around and place it where you want it. So kind of a cool feature. Just quickly going to go through introduction, just a couple quick slides. Unifund is in the debt purchasing business. Our company, Recovery Decision Science, is the analytics, products, and services and financial services. We sell our scores through LexisNexis, big data company. We do servicing. We do a lot of Tableau work. I have a team of programmers and database guys, but I also have a strong Tableau team. Although I just realized my slide is about a month old because I lost Jennifer Dawes. She left and went to Macy's. But I had a very talented Tableau team. I still do. Ethan, Kevin, and Danushki are still with me. Kevin is a Tableau Zen Master, Danushki, ambassador and featured author, and they do a lot of great Tableau work. We do stuff internally for our clients, dashboards that we use to run our business, and we put out to our clients on a private online Tableau page. We also viz publicly on our Tableau public page, doing things around debt, real estate, unemployment and so on. If you haven't seen our unemployment workbook, pretty amazing. It's comprehensive, and Kevin did a lot of work on that one. A really an amazing workbook. And I teach at UC. Hard to believe, but I've had 2,578 students in about 10 years. Every single one of them have used Tableau from the beginning of my class, and it's been a lot of fun. So that's a little bit about me, my company, the background, and so on. Some good links here for you. This workbook I'll put on my Tableau public page, and I'll toss a link in the chat window for you. But these might be useful links for you. Data Plus Science is my blog. Big Book of Dashboards, if you're not familiar, has a lot of workbooks in the gallery there. And these next three, I would definitely check out. TableauReferenceGuide.com has like almost 900 links in a public gallery that you can search. And it's blog posts by some of the best people in the Tableau community. Tabcharts.com is a catalog, I don't know, 30 charts or something that I show you how to build step by step. And Tab Tips is a volume of, I don't know, maybe 240 Tableau tips that I've published and put on various things. My tip or trick for you here is that I can't click on any of these to go to these websites. There's two things you can do. One is in your web, in the text box, excuse me, you can double click your text box. And if you simply add in front of the text, HTTP or HTTPS, with your slashes, you will get an active link, and all of a sudden that becomes clickable. You'll notice when I put my mouse over the text box of Tab Charts, it won't go there. But when I go over Tab Tips and I click on it, it'll actually take me to that web page. Of course, the web page is not working. Why is my web page not working? Oh, because I had HTTPS. It's not secured. So there's my Tab Tips. Easy enough. I'll correct that so you don't go to the wrong website there. The other way you could do this actually is you can make your hyperlink in a text box, in a text document like Word, where you could put your link in. So I'll often use Word. I'll just go to a new text document here, blank document, and I'll type the word tabcharts.com. And if I went, sort of www in here and hit return, it'll turn it into a hyperlink, right? And so now it's a hyperlink, and I can erase that text. I can have the text be whatever I want. If I take that text and bring it back into Tableau, I can copy and paste that text in here too. So I'll just put it right under here, Control V it in here, and the text will copy in. Did I freeze up Tableau? Of course I did. I don't know what I had in my clipboard. That's a good start, freezing up Tableau. Awesome.
You must be really hurting on system resources if a copy paste of text freezes up your system.
Yeah, I'm afraid I might have not copied it and may have copied a large data set is what I'm worried I did there.
Ooh.
Awesome. All right. I'm sorry about that, folks. That did not work. Hopefully my next one will do.
This is all good. I think it's a great insight for people that even 5 times Zen masters struggle with a lot of the same stuff we struggle with.
I think Tableau just crashed on me, so I'm just going to close it up. Which hasn't crashed in a while, actually, so I don't know what happened there.
Looks like it took.
I guess, I don't know. I'm not even going to click it. I'm going to cancel it because I don't want to mess with it. All right, we'll see. I got to do another copy and paste for my next trick. So we'll see if that works. We'll find out. Tips and charts. If you go into a text box of this, you'll see your largest text in Tableau is actually 72. You can't type a number in here higher than 72. If you tried to type 150, for example, it stops at 15. So there's really nothing you can do on that. But if you go out to your document and type in the word, well, I'll just take the same text just to make it easier, copy it out of here, and I'll put it in Word. and tips and charts. I can make tips and charts as big as I want. I'll go up to 140. Now it's really, really big. And I'll take it back into Tableau. We'll see if the copy and paste works this time. It looks like it did. I'll center it because it doesn't like to do that. So I'm going to center up the text, and you'll see here quickly that I got larger text than 72. Apologize for my dogs barking there. It sounds like a pound. All right. This is very useful when you're working with things like bands, really large numbers, big annotated numbers, if you will. Steve Wexler calls them something else. These big annotated numbers, if you want to put them on your dashboard, you know, that is bigger than 72. And you'll see in my text box, I just did the exact same trick where it says 72, but I actually pasted the field in there at a much larger text. So on your dashboard, if you really needed to get big, you could do that. All right, moving on. I want to build some charts for you and do some tips and tricks along the way. The chart that I'm going to build and kind of walk through methodology is this connected dot plot, sometimes called a barbell chart or a dumbbell chart. But it really 2 dots connected with a line. And we're going to build this with just Superstore data pretty quickly here in Tableau. And then what I'm going to do is show you how we can make about 4 or 5 different charts just from this template that I built. So this Superstore data, just so we can kind of see, it's a subcategory, and it's just summing sales, or basically all the pills that it is. So I'm just going to go get those pills. Subcategory is on my rows. If you're newer to Tableau, think about your rows and columns. Your rows are your y-axis, your columns are your x-axis. So when I'm just going to put this subcategory on rows, that goes to my y-axis, and there it is. I'm going to take my sales, and I'm just going to put the sum of sales up on columns. So I have my sales, I get a bar chart. Everybody's probably done that before. I'm going to put it in entire view just to fill up the space. Now, making a dot plot, that's easy. We can just come up here. We can change it to a circle. We have a dot, no problem. I could size it a little bigger so my dots are a little bigger. Now, when I want to break a dot into multiple dots, or you want to take a bar and break it into multiple bars, or you want to take a line and burst it into multiple lines, we do that with putting things on our marks card, either on details or color. Either one will work. We're going to burst the marks in some way, and we're going to use date in this case to do it. I am going to use the year of the order date, and I'm just going to put it on details for a second, and I'll have 4 dots, you know, 1 for each year. 4 dots, 1 dot bursts into 4 because I put year on details. If I want to change it to color, I could drag it up to color on the marks card. Another little tip or trick, there's an icon right next to the pill on the marks card. You can just click that icon, change it to color. That's kind of cool. Really fast way to do color. So that's awesome. You could also, FYI, take your order date and drag it into the main chart area, and that'll also put it on color. That's kind of cool. Like, just dropped it in the main chart area and that puts it on color. In this case, you'll see I have 4 years. I don't want 4 years, so I'm going to filter that out. I'm just going to put order date on filters and select maybe the earliest year and latest year, just so I have 2 dots, because I only need 2 dots and we're all good. I had pre-colored them, so that's why they're gray and blue and not the normal Tableau colors. Next, I'm going to create a dual access, and there's a couple steps to this. I'm sure many of you have done dual access a lot. We're going to duplicate the pill up on our columns. I hold down my control key and just drag the pill next to itself. Command on a Mac, I think it is, hold it there, and we've duplicated the pill. The reason we duplicate the pill is because over on our marks card, we now have multiple marks. We have this trick is used to get multiple mark types. We can have one mark that's a dot. We can have another mark that is a line, which is what we want to do. So no problem. I can go to the second marks card. I'll change it to a line. I'll get this weird looking line that it's drawing because it's drawing it down the table. And really all I need to do is tell Tableau how to draw it. And we do that with the path that's there. Now, there's a couple steps here that I would need to do because I want to set this on path. What you're going to find I mean, I don't want to use subcategory on path because if I put subcategory on path, it's just going to give me the same line that I have, draw the lines through the subcategories. What I really want is the year of order date on path. Now, to do that, I would normally drag order date over to path, but because I'm using year already of the order date, when I do it, it's going to make it a quarter. If I brought order date over again onto details, it would drag month. And if I brought it again, it would take today. So every time I drag the date over, it goes down another level. So then I would need to change that pill from quarter to year. It would draw the line. I probably don't want this gradient color on there, so I could get rid of year of color on there. And if you saw me do all that and I hit my back button, all I really would have needed to do is just change this icon again from color to path, and it would have solved my problem. Easy enough. Okay, next, I'm going to put the line on top of the bar. And to do that, we go to our second green pill that's on the columns, the second green pill, and we go down and it says dual access. That's awesome. That'll take the first chart and put it on the second chart. There's a shortcut key to do that as well, just to go straight to your dual access. But for now, I'll just leave it at this. When you do a dual access, you're almost always going to want to synchronize it, especially if you're just using it for mark purposes. So always teach yourself and others, right click on the access and synchronize it. Otherwise, these marks will get out of sync. And unless you're doing that on purpose, you'll probably want it synchronized. If it were up to me, I'd probably synchronize by default, actually, but hey. Now, this is great. We built our dumbbell chart, but there's one other little thing going on. We have these lines that are on top of our dots. In Tableau, this is your Z order. Your X-axis is your columns going across. Your Y-axis is your rows going up and down. But now we have the Z-axis that's going forward and back. There are marks that are on top of other marks. And Z is a little more complicated in Tableau. Z order is created by a combination of the order of your legend, the order of the pills on your marks card, the order of the data sometimes, or the order of your colors or your sort order. So all of those things can affect your Z order. In this case, if I want to put the dots on top of the lines, what I would simply do, and the easiest thing to do, is leapfrog the pills, change the order of them on the columns. By the way, I don't know if anybody ever noticed this in Tableau. If you do a dual access, your pills aren't round anymore. It's got a side edge to it. It links those two pills together with a hard edge and shows that they're duplicated, right? That they're dual access. And so I know that those pills are dual access. I know that I have multiple marks cards, and I can see that I have two X axes here. What I'm going to do is just flip the order of these pills. I'm going to leapfrog sales from the left side up over top of the pill and put it on the right side of the other sales pill. And when I do that, you'll see that the order of the marks card over here changed. The lines went up, the dots came down. Your top marks are at the bottom. In this case, your circles are going to be on top. And you'll see that the dots are now in the view on top of your lines. Easy enough to change that order. All right, so now that we've created what we'll call this, close this, I don't need to save. Now that I've created the connected dot plot, I'm going to build a couple other quick charts from this. And we can do each one of these in less than a minute because we don't have to make very many changes to create other types of charts. This connected dot plot, for example, could be made into a tadpole chart. This gets a name. I can't remember the lady who came up with that term, but this is now showing more directional. It's moving from one to the other, right? So in 2016, our sales were over here on the left-hand side. On the right side, it's over here. Well, this is really simple to do. Actually, we just take a connected dot plot and we add one more pill to it. We add a pill for year on size. So if I take my connected dot plot over here, I'm going to just duplicate the sheet. Now we have connected dot plot 2. I'm going to take order date and put it on size. Now remember what I told you before. I'm already using order date for year. So if I drop order date again, it's going to go to quarter. So here's another tip or trick for you. right click and drag it to size, and it'll ask you what aggregation you want before you drop it. So instead of going to quarter automatically, I can pick year and put year of the order date on size. Then with it sized, I get a size legend over on the right-hand side. If I size the dots appropriately or how I want, I make the small dot really small, the bigger dot bigger, and I have a tadpole chart. It's really 2 dots, but 1 dot is just tiny. So you can't see it because it's on the end of the line. So that's a tadpole. I'll go over here and delete this. I'm gonna come down here and rename this connected dot plot. Here's a tip or trick I should definitely not be showing you. So don't tell anybody I told you this, because your Tableau server admin will hate you for this. But I have a sheet called tadpole. I can't name it tadpole. It's going to give me an error. So if I want to name it tadpole, I'm just going to put a space behind it. Now I have 2 sheets, one tadpole with a space. They're both named the same. Yeah, nobody will know. All right, next. I'm going to skip that one. I'm going to do a snake chart. I'm going to show you how to build this one, which is the same exact thing. This is one going from the left to the right. Another variation, maybe show your direction of your sales or your year over year. The snake chart is also going to be your connected dot plot or your tadpole chart, either one. I'll take the tadpole chart. I will duplicate it. And now when I'm building the snake, I have to kind of think about, well, what am I doing with this snake? It's really a dot with a line. Well, the line is just thicker. So if I go to the marks card that has the line and I click on size and I drag the size icon to be really big, aren't I making my line thicker? Doesn't that just turn that chart into that chart? So I just took one with a slide of a button. I just made another. That might be too dark in this case. I probably like my colors over here a little bit better, but that is the snake chart. Another one is a comet chart. What if you want to size it to make it look like a comet moving through the air? A comet chart, I think it, what's interesting about this is users really like the look of it. And yet, it's really strong from an analytical integrity using position, just like a dot plot would. I think it works really, really well. So showing year over year sales, one going up, some are going down. In this case, what I'm going to do is, let's see, I'll take our tadpole chart. I'll duplicate it again. I'll bring it down here to our comet. How do I make this a comet chart? Well, what's interesting about this one is I don't need a dot and a line. I just need the line. And you might not remember which one up here on your sales is a dot. If you can't remember which pill is which, click on it and watch what happens to your marks card. If I click on the first sales, the line highlights. If I click on the second sales pill, the dot highlights. So if I want to get rid of the dot, now I know which pill it is. I'll drag it off and it'll disappear. And now I only have a line. Easy enough. Now this one is a little trickier because instead of just taking the slider and sliding my line up to make everything bigger, I actually want to size my line again by the year of order date. So I take my order date, right click, drag it over to size, just like we did before on the dots. I'm going to size it by year. Instead of sizing the dots by year, now I'm sizing the lines by year. The thin line is the first year and the thicker line is the later year, 2019. Coloring this can be a little challenging. Tableau, I love Tableau's color palettes, by the way, and they do a great job with your preference files and your custom colors and your sequential and diverging and categorical color palettes. One that'll give you grief is trying to use categorical colors on something that isn't categorical, like a measure that's moving over time, like a line chart. It'll create a line chart that's sort of diverging in color. It'll mix the colors up. And so what you're going to see here is if I put sales, I guess, on color, we're going to have a whole host of problems. So let's take sales and put it on color and see what happens. All right, well, Tableau did what I told it to. It's coloring by sales. The more of a sale, the darker the color. The less of a sale, the lighter the color. You say, Jeff, we don't want to color like that. We actually want to color based on the change of sales. We want to see if it changes from one period to the next. We want to color based on that. So we go, okay, well, we know a little bit about calculations. Maybe we go over to a quick calculation and say, you know what? Here's what we're going to do. We're going to change this to a quick table calculation. And I guess we could look at the difference in sales, or we could look at the percent difference in sales, one of those two. I'll just do difference, and we do that. Well, that's still not what we want, because now that is not coloring right. As we go down the table, if sales go down, it turns orange. If it goes up, moves to the right, then it turns blue. If it's to the left, it's orange. That's because that calculation is calculating down your table. It's going this way down the visualization. So we have to go back to our calculation. We have to tell Tableau, okay, well, how should I calculate it? I'm going to compute using the order date. The date difference is what I want to calculate for sales, not the table down. So I change the order date and I should get the color I want, right? Well, I kind of get the color I want, but because of that continuous color scheme, it's going from light on one side to dark on the other. It's passing through these gray and gray color palette in the middle, right? The middle of the diverging color scheme. There's a couple tricks people do. They'll double click this and, they'll do something like step the colors and put the colors into 2 color palettes, just make it orange and blue. And that'll kind of help. But notice that still, even on an orange one, it starts blue over here because there's a null difference. And then it goes to the left and it kind of becomes orange. So that becomes a lot harder to color if you really wanted to color them in 2 colors. If you wanted to do something like this, it's going to require a calculated field of some sort to get this to calculate for you. I created one that I put on color. This was my year-over-year calculation. I did something like this. Now, maybe you're newer to Tableau, you get tied up with these calculations. Somebody asked in a previous session, what is the ZN and what is ABS and what is lookup? And maybe you don't know how to do all this information at all these things in the calculated field. I'm going to show you another cool tip or trick, which is you saw me build that sales calculation right on color. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back just to kind of show you over here. You saw me build this calculation that I did, not this one. Over here, where's my comment? There it is. You saw me build this sum of sales calculation over here. What I'm going to do is show you sort of introduction to creating custom calculations. If you go up here and create a calculated field, one thing that'll help you get started is creating simple table calculations like sum of sales, telling it how to calculate, telling it you want the difference in sales, and dragging it into your calculation window. And when you do that, you'll see that it has the big picture of what I'm trying to do in this calculation. It's got the sum of sales, then it's minusing the previous value of sum of sales. It's looking up the previous value of sum of sales. As Jim mentioned, it has that ZN zero null function, so it doesn't take a null. And that just, you think about it, you're like, oh, how did he know how to write that calculation? I didn't write that calculation. I just dragged it in my window and then I modified the calculation in a better way. And so that leads me back to this calculation, which the year-over-year calculation is just an adaptation. It adapts that. It takes the current sales, it looks up the previous sales, it divides by the absolute value of the previous sales, does this lookup thing, and the zero null takes care of that problem of having a null where I have a 0 for my data. Now, after I did all that, by the way, Ken Flairledge, brother of Kevin who works for me, Ken Flairledge, Tableau, Zen Master, we were trading emails and he came up with an alternate solution. He just said, well, we can just use this. We can look up the previous value with a Windows Max function and a great table, a great function called sign using this calculated field where he just checks the sign. It's either positive or negative, and that returns basically a +1 or a -1, and that's how we color it. That's a lot of steps to get this discrete color. And I realize it's not simple because of the way Tableau's colors work, but in the end, that's a pretty simple formula that takes my current value minus my previous value. It maxes it and puts a sign, positive or negative. Is it a positive moving to the right or a negative moving to the left? And that's how I'm able to color the comet chart. All right. I'm going to assume I can keep going here because I think they had me till 5:55. Am I good, Nick? Just keep going till my time?
Yep.
All right. I'll keep chugging away and I'll do 5-6 more minutes of tips and give you time for questions. I want to do some quick tips for you. Here is a chart on COVID. I don't know what Tableau is doing to me. Okay, there it goes. This is a chart I built tracking COVID by state. Was looking at Ohio. This is all Ohio data. And I put the things in here when things opened back up. We had some protests and restaurants opened and gyms opened and so on. I put those in as reference lines. Here's a tip or trick for you. To format a reference line, you might know this. You right click on it and go to format, and it'll bring up a formatting menu over on the left-hand side. And that's where you change the line color and so on, and the font and all of that. But what happens if you have multiples? Well, you can actually multi-select them. You can click them one at a time with your control key and multi-select. You could use actually your selection, like you select points in Tableau. A lot of people don't know this, but I can just select all of them. They're all selected. And if I want to change all their formatting, I can change all the lines that are selected to orange, all the lines to blue, all the lines to black. And so easy way to format all my reference lines. Also, since they're selected, then I can change the custom shading and say, you know what, I don't want any shading, take the shading off the words, or change the font color to blue. I'm changing everything at the same time. Kind of cool. If you want to get rid of them, well, yeah, you can right click and remove. You can also click and drag them off one at a time, but you know, you could also select them all and drag them off. And that didn't work there. I guess you can't multi-select off, but you can multi-select and remove. So you can remove them all with your right click and remove. So managing your reference lines, you can add them, you know, one at a time, different things. Those were all dates that I added, but an easy way to format them all or to do that. Here's another cool one. A lot of people don't know this one. I have a list of California counties. Governor Gavin Newsom on Twitter, sometime back in July 13th of 2020, he sent out a tweet. And this is during COVID. He said, we're locking counties back down. We're putting counties back. We're putting them back on lockdown. And here is the list of counties in California that we have. Now, I have COVID data. I have California COVID data. I selected the state up here of California. I have all the counties. I don't know about you, but I don't want to go county by county, alphabetical order, and try to select them over here and get them right. Make sure I got them selected. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go to my filter and I'm going to change the filter to a very specific filter type, which is a custom list. It's a multi-value custom list. That's going to give me a text box here. And in that text box, all I'm going to do is go to the tweet and I'm going to just copy literally from the tweet all these counties that Governor Newsom put in his tweet. And I'm going to paste them in this custom value list. You'll see Tableau already did something here. Once they're pasted in the list, I can go back and change it to a multi-value drop-down box and look what counties are selected. I'll just change it to a full multi-value list. There we go. And now you can see the counties that I copied are there. The only one you might have to be careful of is Governor Newsom said LA for a Los Angeles County. So I do have to make sure I check my data that it got it, but I literally pasted in 30 values in a custom value list, filtered it automatically. By the way, you can do the same thing in the filter box over here where you have county and you have a wild card here. You want to match a value here in your condition here. You can do it by formula. You can also do your top in here as well. So same there, but this is handy for the user or the designer to get down to the data. Updating data, super easy once you have all this. Let me see if I can do this again. Highlight all of these, right click on them and remove, and boom, all are gone. So that's what I was showing you before. To update data, I'm just using the New York Times GitHub data. So I'm just going to add a data source, go into my text file, find the newest COVID data, select the new COVID data. New COVID data loads into Tableau brilliantly. That's awesome. So then all I have to do is on my chart, I have one data source here. The blue mark up there is telling me which is my active data source. If I want to replace it, go to data, replace data source, and literally with the click of the button, I can update my data from last year to this year to see that we thought it was high back last fall. Turns out it actually wasn't high. We ended up having, another second outbreak. It turned out that, December 8th was peak over here. This is at least in Ohio. And for all of the US, it looks like that. And we actually went through a second, wave of COVID. Still coming down. All right. Quick tip or trick on a custom map. I love this one. This is not a Mapbox map. That is a Tableau map in Tableau with no custom Mapbox brought in at all. How did that's the University of Cincinnati. How did I make the University of Cincinnati a blue map? Well, let's see if we can do that. First, we got to build a map. Any geographic field in Tableau, you can build a map. I'll just type double click city and I'll get a map. Awesome. There's a search box up top, and you can punch in a zip code up here, by the way, like 45207 for Cincinnati. You can type in Cincinnati like that. It'll find the city for you. Awesome. All right. Maybe I'll just get rid of these points here just so you can't see the point. All right. Now, when I go to my map layers, I need to build a little map layer, whatever map, we want to use. I'm going to add streets and highways. I'll get rid of land cover. And I want to check building footprints down here, but I can't because it's grayed out. So I have to zoom in to a level up here. I'll move up to the University of Cincinnati, right in that area. And I'll zoom into the University of Cincinnati. And then I can check building footprints, and the building footprints will show up when I'm selected in on that. Now, what I'm going to do here is two things. This is the tip or trick to get you to, to build your map. I guess I should put my opacity back here, and I'll just make the size of that dot really small. That's what I'll do instead. All right. So I have streets and highways added. I have building footprints added, and so on. If I want to go over to some of these others, there's other map types that I can use. The two quick tips here. One is you got to make sure you uncheck your base layer. You have to uncheck the base layer to make the back color of the map disappear, because otherwise you're using the base layer color on your maps. The second thing that you need to do is right click on your map, and you're going to change the format of the map. And you are going to go to your formatting of your pane color, not your worksheet, but your pane color. And if you change your pane color to blue, there you get the map with the blue streets and the blue everything. There's your blue buildings. Your white buildings on the blue map. And now, by the way, if you change your map layers again from light to dark, the buildings will follow your light map has light buildings, dark map has dark buildings. So you can have a map that looks like that. Any color you want, by the way. You can design it to your dashboard. This works on world maps, country maps, state maps, or in this case, city maps. And, with that, I think I have about 3 minutes here. I'll be happy to take questions if you have them. I just wanted to show you some quick tips, tricks, things that maybe you haven't seen before.
I have one quick question. Do you know what the Mac equivalent is for right click and drag? I just ran into that the other day, and that stumped me.
I am not a Mac user, but I am
Neither
sure
am I.
that
That's why I'm stumped.
a Mac user on this
No
call
worries.
will probably be able to tell us.
I'm sure I could Google it.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
I'll
I
look
could
it
probably
up.
Google that too, but I'm just not a Mac
It's
person,
fine.
so I don't know.
Any other questions from anyone? This was great, Jeffrey. I learned things. I like it when I learn things. David, I see your hand raised. Do you want to come off mute and ask your question? Oh, I see
Yeah.
it's in chat, but go ahead.
Yeah, Jeff, I was just curious, what's your favorite technique for adding space at the end of a line for labels? That's a constant irritant to me.
Space at the end of a line for label. So like you're labeling a bar chart and you want to put space at the end of it.
Like a line chart or a slope chart or something like that. And
Oh,
you
because when
want
you
the
add the
labels.
space in the text box, Tableau doesn't recognize it at the end.
Yeah, or it
Yeah.
doesn't give, if you have like a discrete pill for your column, it doesn't give you space to the right of the line for the label. So it'll like put it underneath it or to the left of it or.
Yeah, there's no great solution for that. There's some hacky stuff. If you're adding at the end of a text label, I've seen people put a little period there and color it as the background color so that it'll add some space. You do another tip or trick, just to make sure everybody knows this. If you label something and you have a label here, you can also click on the label and move it. So you can move a label around. That's manual, so I don't recommend doing that for a whole page of labels. But if one label is not where you want it, you can just click it and move it, and put it where you want it if you want to move it anywhere.
One trick I like to do is, well, go ahead, Jim.
No, if you've got a solution, go ahead and throw it out there.
Yeah, what I'll do is an LOD on, like, try to get across the whole data set. Just do a simple LOD of the max value. And you might have to do it for whatever your grain is. So like in this case, it'd be subcategory, right? And then do a factor on it. Like take whatever the max is by subcategory and then times it by 1.05 and take that calculation, make it an invisible reference line. That'll force your axis out a little bit and should make room for a label.
Yeah, if you're running into like a problem with the access, that's a great technique. And there's a bunch of different calculations you can do with that. You could take your you could take your Windows max and multiply it by something. But yeah, there's a couple solutions for that.
That's probably even better.
David, I suggest you sign up for TC, come on out to TC and look up a presentation that's going to be made. Heidi Kelby and Annabelle Rincon are going to do a presentation that I think you'll see it in there.
Good deal. Well, Jeff, wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Great to see you guys.
All the time we have for the prepared segment. We do want to open the floor here in a sec. Jim, are you ready to go over your slides in 4 minutes or less?
Yeah, Jeff, great presentation. Next, when you guys go live in Cincinnati, let me know because I want to come up and see you guys again.
For sure. It was great to see you last time.
Yeah. Okay. You want to just throw that out there, Nick, because I don't have it. Just real quick, everybody is getting focused on TC21. And here in the US, that's the 9th through the 11th. That is the link where you can sign up. And now you can go out and you can build your schedule. Okay, they opened that up today. You can build your schedule. You can go out there, you can look, you can find the presentation that Eric is in, and you can make sure to put that on the schedule. I personally put it on mine first and then worked around everything else to make sure that Eric was on. But that was opened up today. So go on out there, set your schedule, plan what you want to do, and we hope to see you there at TC21. I mentioned last year, I'll mention it, or last month, I'm going to mention it again. There's going to be a brand new users group that Klaus in Germany and I are going to co-lead for newbies. And it's going to be we're going to have quarterly meetings, and the first meeting is going to be in January. We're going to announce it at TC. So we hope to see some of you there also. If there are any teachers K through 12 who think about or might want to use Tableau in the classroom, or you're putting together a curriculum on data literacy and how to use data and how to tell stories with data, please contact me at my email address right there. Job seekers, I know there's still opportunities at Tableau, and I know JLL is continuing to look. I saw in the chat here that Lindsay's got a job opening at Vanderbilt. Maybe she wants to hop online here and tell us about it real quick.
Hi, I do. I have the posting, and if anybody's interested, I'm happy to share it. I have an PDF. It looks like maybe Salesforce or Tableau's won't let me drop the PDF into the chat, so I'm happy to just email it to anybody who asked. And I'll type my email address in there, and I can share my screen if that's okay, if you want to see it. But it is for a position as a software and database engineer, possibly an informatics research engineer, working with one of the engineers that we work with, JP, very closely. So I can share this with anyone, and I'll send my email address.
Anybody else out there with the job opening? Lindsay, we are recording this. I don't know if you want.
I think it's
the
okay, but I'm
recording.
happy to share it, and then I'll send people the content too.
Okay. Okay.
Great.
Brandon's got one. Brandon, you want to jump online and tell us what you have?
Sure. It's a it's a junior reporting analyst at LP, where true entry level roles is open. So anybody from entry level to 1 to 2 years. Tableau is going to be the primary skill. Will be some SQL, but if you're willing to learn all that stuff, we're willing to teach it.